he's not feeling well. So I've agreed to jump in. I do love Jotform. I think it's a great thing. I think if you might just be a chance to turn yourself into a rock star in your library if you learn this, because it really opens up some opportunities that previously might have seemed a little bit too beyond your capabilities. But you can make some pretty awesome stuff with this tool. So I thought I'd kind of take you through it a little bit. First of all, a show of hands. Who's built some kind of web form on the web before? Doesn't mean necessarily that you've coded anything. You might have used Google Forms, or you might have used SurveyMonkey, or... Okay. About 50% maybe. Great. Well, what Jotform is it's similar to those other tools that I mentioned. It's a way for you to make forms on, and put them in any number of things. You can send them as emails, you can put them on your website, put them on your Facebook page. There's a lot of options. And I think what separates it from some of those other tools I mentioned is sort of how robust you can integrate with other things and sort of make your forms a little smarter. If you think about when someone's filling in a form on your site, on your website, for instance, usually you want something to happen to that information after you submit it, right? So you might get an email that has the contents of the email sent to you. You might want that information in a spreadsheet that you can analyze later. You might want to send a variety of emails or send a spreadsheet and some other things. Jotform makes that type of functionality really easily. It also integrates with things like payment gateways. So I'll be showing you a little bit of that here. But you can make your forms really act almost like a web application. So you don't have to necessarily be a coder if you want to put a form on your site to register for a program and have someone pay $10 and then send the attachment afterwards that gives them the details of what they registered for. You could build something like that in Jotform without writing one line of code. Was everyone here able to sign up for an account? It is a free account. Yes, no? You might want to follow along. I am going to talk briefly about pricing because there is a free tier, which you all are welcome to use for now. And it works, it has pretty much all the features you need to build forms. There's just some limitations, so if you want to get, if you want to take payments, you can only take 10 a month. That may or may not work for you. At Schlow, we pay for the bronze level. That seems to fit our needs now, although I just reached that 25 form limit earlier this morning, so I had to delete a couple. But it's a pretty reasonable thing. There is an educational discount of 50% off as well. There are other tools like this, by the way. I was going to mention that, but Jotform's just the one that we chose. I think there's some other good ones out there, but I'm going to jump in. After you've created an account, you'll see this sort of dashboard for yourself. It shows you your list of forms. I'm right now in a folder for Schlow Library. We build forms for our district as well. But I'm going to go ahead and click on the Create form, because I think the best way to learn some of this stuff... Oh, come on, I did delete some. Oh, dear. Well, I'm going to create... How did it do that? I have to empty my trash. Sorry about that. Purge. Wait. Did it select? Okay. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm going to edit one then. I think this was a fairly simple one. So this is kind of like what you might send as if you run a program and you want to assess, an evaluation that you might send to participants. So it shows some of the different forms. Off to the left here is this add form element. So if you're following along and you have an empty form, you might want to click that plus. You'll see at the start you have a variety of what they call basic form elements. So a header would just be that, just like a big heading at the top. And then there's some pre-formatted fields like full name will include first and last name. So if you click that, it'll just insert it right into your form. You can change the field for it to say, spouse or something like that right away. You'll see it already has the subfields for first and last name. That's kind of handy. Same sort of thing with address. You'll get a street address, city, state, postal code. If you want to rearrange the order that those are in, it's real simple. You just click and drag. It's even easier than Word in that regard. Obviously, you can delete things. When you have a particular field element highlighted, you can click on the little cog icon to the right. That's the properties. That's where you can get into some of the changes you can make. So, if you want to change what the question says instead of address, you can do that there as well. You can change your alignment. So maybe you want it above the field. You'll see it did that. You can make the field required, which is sometimes critical when you're building a form like this, because maybe you really need postal address because you're supposed to mail them something. And after you've set one up to the way you like it, if you need more of them, you can duplicate them. Of course, in addition to those fields, there's email, phone numbers, a date picker where you can choose like from a calendar. I'll add one of those too. You really don't need me to see some of this stuff because it's that simple to use. When you are looking in this edit view, it looks kind of like it'll look online, but it won't really give you a perfect view of what you're seeing. So that's what this little toggle switch in the upper right corner is for preview form. That's going to give you more of an exact replica of what you'd see. So you can see what the date picker looks like there. I'm going to toggle that back off for now. Obviously, your submit button becomes pretty important. Of course, if you're doing a paragraph, that's what the long text or the short text would be, a simple line of text. Drop downs, multiple choice, CAPTCHAs, so if you want to annoy people, right? Because people hate those, right? But sometimes that's important so you don't get spammed. If you're building a form for your patrons to write book reviews, you could add a star rating, and they could review their book. I know Michael had a slightly more complicated way to do that earlier this morning, but that would work as well. I'm just adding all kinds of stuff here. Then the page elements, sometimes obviously your form gets long. People hate to scroll, although that's changed somewhat with mobile design. People are more used to scrolling now on their phones because, did you ever get to the bottom of Facebook or Twitter? I haven't gotten there yet. So you can add a divider that'll divide your sections. You can put that up there just to make it sort of a visible divider. You can make your sections collapse. So it's like a click to expand kind of a deal. I'm not going to get into that. There's a little bit more to some of these, and the page break is really the one that people are most used to seeing. So if you need them to go between, okay, I've had enough stuff on the first page, I'm going to have them go to the next page. You can do that there. Pretty straightforward. But that's only scratching the surface of what you can do here. So we have down here the different pages since I've created 2. Then there is a thank you page. I'm going to get into that a little bit later. In addition to all of that stuff, I mentioned payment integrations. We use Jotform exclusively in our district now for our online donations. So when patrons want to donate to us online, we embed these on our website. They never really know they're not on our website. And we tend to use Stripe, which is our preferred payment gateway. There are others that you can choose. Obviously, PayPal is popular, Square, Dwala. Some of these I'm not as familiar with. But there's a lot of them. So if you need to comply with some sort of county regulation, you might be able to find one that works for you. I'll show you in a little bit how we've done it on our site. But really, what you do, even on the free version, you can set this up. When you add a thing, we'll say we'll add Stripe. It tells you it hasn't finished integrating. So you would connect it with your service. That would allow you to authenticate into PayPal or whatever you're using. whether or not you're testing it or in live mode, you know, what your currency type is, whether you're selling products, subscriptions, so it'd be like a monthly charge, or a user-defined amount where they type in, that would be for your donation. Usually you would do something like that, although I'll show you some of the other stuff that we've done. You can suggest an amount, which is sometimes nice for the donation fields. So there's a lot of power right in there, and again, it's really quite simple. You just sort of click the button and authenticate, and it's up and running. After you've sort of built the basic elements of your field, of your form, I'm sorry, you may want to make things a little bit more complex. For instance, on this form, did you attend the whole day? Yes or no? Maybe when they if they get an email confirmation after they submitted the form, I mean that's pretty common these days, maybe you want to send a different email to someone that didn't attend the whole day than you did. That's where you get into some of this more advanced stuff on the settings heading at the top. Conditions is one of those. So basically it says create conditional logic. So there's a variety of things that you can do based on a condition. So let's say that when they checked that field, you're going to change the email recipient. So you'll say, did you attend the whole day is equal to yes. We only have one field right now that accepts email, so that's where that's going to go. But if you had two fields in your form that had email addresses, you could choose which one of those two you would send it to. Once you save that, it kind of gives you a overview of what you just configured. So it said, if did you attend the whole day is equal to yes, then send the notification email to, and then it's whatever you selected there. You can also, if you're in there, if you just want to type in an email address, you can do that too. So you can do there's a lot of other conditionals that you can choose from. You can add multiple ones to the same form. So maybe instead of that, you want to show or hide a field whether or not someone has collected something. So maybe if someone, that's a text field, sorry. See, I was going to build all this stuff. Okay. What did you attend? That's a better one, better example. Sorry. So what did you attend is equal to books, bears, and blankets. Then maybe you have a whole nother question that's a follow-up question about books, bears, and blankets. So you could show that if it was previously hidden, and you would show spouse. Sorry, this doesn't make a lot of logical sense, but I hope you're getting the gist of it. Michael has said that he likes to use the calculate fields. One of the forms that we've built uses that, so I can show you that when I bring that up. You can also make fields required based on a condition. Sometimes that's important. So if someone doesn't have an email address, maybe postal address becomes required or phone number becomes required, something like that. So you can follow up. I'm going to go back here and add another email address real quick. And then we'll go to emails. So right now, by default, I think every form you create has just a simple one that'll send a notification to the creator of the form. Someone submitted the form, right? You can, however, send any number of these that you want. There's an autoresponder and notifications. So by default, they'll give you kind of a template. The notification is for sort of staff or people that are receiving stuff on the back end of the form. And the autoresponder is more like, thank you for submitting your form. Here's the information you sent. You can tweak these to your heart's content, however. So if you want to send an autoresponder, you can say, we have received your response for form title. There's a whole bunch of these variables. So you can actually input the value of any field that they've typed information into there. So if you don't want it to be form title, maybe you want to say, here's your response for, what did you attend? And it shows what they attended. You could put that in there instead. I forget how you get the, oh, there. You just hit the little pencil, and then you can choose. Sorry, I have a lot of junk in here. What did you attend? So you see that these little placeholders with the curly brackets are sort of a variable, so that can change depending on what they put in. And then you can go with their sort of default template, and that's fine, but you see you have this whole sort of WYSIWYG editor here that allows you to put just about any rich content you want to in these emails. So that can be really nice. You can create some really slick-looking things. And again, I'm going to show you one of those in a minute. But you have your font families, font sizes, bold, italics, text align, text color. You can insert links or images. You can add code if you'd like, or change the code directly, insert tables. This will make the editor full screen, which is sometimes helpful if you have a really big project. And then these are the form fields that you can insert. By default, they're going to sort of put everything in this table view. Sometimes it's useful to just use the default. Sometimes you might want to delete the whole thing and start from scratch. I find one of those two approaches better than trying to modify the default one so much. Maybe make minor changes, but it's a little bit easier this way. Have I lost anyone? Any questions or anything? Okay. You get to the recipient subtab then. That's where you can sort of say, okay, well, the sender name, some of this stuff, you can change the name and the reply to address. It is less advisable nowadays to actually change the from address of these emails. So if you would use the reply to. So if someone gets the email and they reply, it would go to what you specify there. But if you wanted to actually say it's from john@libraryville.com, that's more likely to get flagged for spam in the modern world. So it's better to sort of stick with this reply to methodology unless you really know what you're doing. The recipient email then is a variable. So if you have a field in your form that's an email address, like the one that I added, my email, you can put that there. And then this is going to go to that person. You can also give people the ability to edit forms after they've submitted it. So if you send the link to their submission in the autoresponder, they can go back and change it later and save it. So that would resend on edit. If you include, I didn't add any file attachments to our form. I should probably have done that. But you can actually upload files in your form. So if someone needs to attach, we use this to people apply for a juried art exhibit in our library. And people can actually submit their JPEGs of their artwork right here by adding this. Or we're going to be doing that anyway. You can hide empty fields. This is the thing I was talking about where the sender email, they give you a couple to choose from. If you want to add a third one, that's where I said you kind of have to get to know what you're doing about that. Any questions about the email side of things? It's pretty robust. By default with Jotform, in addition to emails being sent, it's going to collect all of the information that's submitted. So I'm actually going to go back to my forms real quick. And I'm going to find so we take submissions for our 3D printers in a form right now. And so you can actually, just by clicking on this in sort of your dashboard, you can sort of scroll through all the submissions that way and review them that way. If you want to do more robust work with that information, you can click on more and view submissions. There's also an analytics button, which honestly I haven't used much. Have you used it before? It's new, okay. That's why I haven't used it. You can print PDFs. You can also download as Excel, CSV, PDF, download all uploads if people have uploaded attachments. Okay. We'll go back into our sample survey mess of a form here. Integrations allows you to do a lot more. So we've already talked about the payment integrations that you can do. You can link it, as many people like to a Google spreadsheet, so then it would function effectively like a Google form does too. The one limitation of this that I'm not super fond of is you can only save to one spreadsheet per form. So sometimes I've come up with some scenarios where it'd be nice to be able to save this information to different spreadsheets in different formats or something. That's not an option at the moment, but you can add things to Dropbox or Google Drive. Very helpful if you're using file attachments. You could add someone's email address to like your Mailchimp, so they're subscribed to your newsletters. I talked earlier about Zapier. There's a ton of integrations with Zapier and Jotform that we've used. There's quite a few others as well. The webhooks one's actually kind of interesting for those of you getting into development a little bit, because there's the promise with something like this that maybe you could even create a form that would pay your fines online, and it would actually create a webhook as a form of an API. So you could actually, when you submit the form, it would deduct that from the patron account in your ILS if your ILS has an API. That's definitely more advanced than we're going to get into today, but I wanted you to know that is technically a conceivable option, which is kind of cool. I don't think we're using any webhooks directly, but. All right, and then you can, similar to all the email options, you can edit your thank you page to your heart's content as well. So you can create this page that says specifically, maybe there's instructions for what someone's registered for, or all kinds of, if it was a quiz or something. I don't know, it doesn't really have quiz logic built into it. Some of the other form builders do, but you could have like, here's your certificate for CE. I know our director likes that capability. Our district consultant has that ability. So after someone's filled in their survey evaluating the program they just attended, then they can print out the certificate on this page. So that's kind of a cool way to use that. Or you can redirect them to an external link. So if you want to send them to a specific website after they've submitted, that's an option as well. Then on the Publish tab at the top, there's lots of different ways that you can share these forms. I mentioned that already. It gives you a link, so you can just send a link to somebody if you want to. Or if this is a true way to sort of preview how you've built your form. But in addition to that, there's a tremendous amount of share options. So, there's your typical, if you've used embed codes before, they provide those either in JavaScript format or iframe. You can create a feedback button that floats like on your website, that kind of thing, and then if someone clicks that, it loads the form. There's a lot of options there. In addition to all of those, though, you can look through here for your CMS of choice. If you use WordPress, you can click on that, and it's going to give you the code and instructions on how to get it on your site. So even if you aren't your web developer, you should be able to get pretty far by just going through this. I will say also that Jotforms help files and forums are really helpful. I've found all kinds of really interesting things just by searching those. So I would recommend you check that out as well. They actually respond pretty quickly, even if you're a free customer too. So if you post in there, it's sort of a forum with a question. Someone on Jotform staff usually gets back to you within a day, which is pretty cool. All right. The one thing I haven't talked about yet is making this stuff look nice. So you sort of build all the functionality you want, but maybe you want it to really look like your website. You have a lot of flexibility with that. That's what this sort of blue button on the right, Form Designer, gives you. This is their sort of basic options, so you can choose a basic color scheme. You can change those individual colors if you like. That's pretty clashy. You can put an image in the background of your form. You can choose font colors. You can also get in a little more depth about, like, if you have a particular element selected, well, you can choose how wide something is, the whole form. But I think there's also, how do I get into the, oh, that's under the advanced one. You know, what size fonts, that kind of things, what your buttons look like. If you're really into making it look just like your website, you can actually inject CSS directly into your form. So you can take your CSS code from your website, probably have to change it a little bit, but you can put that into there as well. Or if you just want to pick a pretty theme that someone's already made, they have quite a few free themes available that look nice. So there's one with a brick wall or dog. In addition to all of that, going back to this one, you can go into their advanced designer. That's sort of like a whole different interface. But you can get really granular. So if you want a particular question to look a different way, you can click on that one thing. You can say, oh, well, I want the radio buttons big on this one, and I want the colors to be red. Yeah, there's a lot of options. So now I think what I'd like to do is show you a couple of the forms that we've built, maybe get the juices flowing on some ideas for you. So go back to the builder. I'm going to discard my changes. And I'm going to go back to my forms. So this was an interesting one that Michael spent a lot of time building for us. Unfortunately, we only had one person give us money, which is too bad because it's a great form. The idea was we were going to do an ebook drive and get people to give us money to buy more ebooks. And we wanted to do it for our whole district because we buy our ebooks at the district. But there's some problems with this because, you know, while library districts mean a lot to some of us in the public library sector, patrons don't really understand what that means. So we wanted to make this relatively user-friendly, so we had people choose their form elements, choose their library by clicking on an image. Now, you may not have seen these images as an option when we were building the forms before, but that's because we didn't go to the widgets page. Widgets are actually third-party things that people have written for Jotform, and there's dozens of them, if not hundreds, I'm not sure. You can add signatures, you can add PDF embedders, cities of Russia. I guess that could be useful. Facebook like button, all kinds of things. In this particular case, this widget, I believe, is called the image something or other. There's a widget settings on these as well, image picker. So you can actually have images as buttons on your form. So people could click on their logo. In addition to that, we kind of did some CSS to make this idea work. So instead of having people type in amounts, we gave them sort of steps that they could give at. Get into the widget settings on that. You still just list your options here, but I believe Michael wrote the CSS that makes it look consistent with our websites that we develop with. Basic contact information. And then this is the Stripe integration. In our case, I don't think you can have multiple payment integrations on the same form. Is that right? Right. So our district had their own Stripe account, so that's how we did that, because all of the money was ultimately going to the same pool. If you needed to have something like this but have it go to different bank accounts or something, you could do that. You would just have to build multiple forms. And you remember back when you created, or you could choose the thank you page, you could choose it to redirect to a URL. You could have it redirect to a different form. So you could have one sort of master form where they collect all the information, and then when it's time to get the payment information, you could send them using a conditional field. You could send them to the payment screen for that bank account, if that makes sense. Michael did a bunch of really interesting stuff on here. One of the things that we wanted to do with this was, in addition to having all of this be user-friendly, we wanted to send the patrons a personalized thank you letter from that library director. So what we did, he actually built a bunch of hidden fields down here. Any field can be hidden, that's just in the general settings. So it's not something that shows up to the user, but it's the names of our library directors in our district. And then based on what they select up here, the conditional settings are set such that, let's see if we can find that. We have a lot of conditions on this form, as you can see. If you choose libraries contains Mifflin County Libraries, insert, and then you insert that field value into the field. And then that's actually the field then that when we built our emails, the autoresponders, so dear name, so that's the name of the person, your generous. Is that the library logo, the choose your? Yeah, so that puts the library logo on the left side, so if they chose Schlow Library, it would be our logo on that. Dear Jim, thanks for making a thing, and then sincerely, and then it would just display the value of that library director that was selected. You see how that kind of works? I mean, it was a bit of a kludge, but we got it to work, so we were pretty pleased. Sorry. Back on here. So we're connected to our Stripe account. We are in live mode. We're using the collect donations thing. There were some of the conditions there that sort of said, well, if they chose 25, then insert 25 into that amount there. If they choose 50, insert 50. If they choose other and type it in, insert that value in. So some of this stuff isn't sort of pre-made for you, but you can make it work because it's so flexible. Let's see here. GeekSpeak is one where we've used a lot of pages. GeekSpeak's a program we run that's kind of like, what's the national one that we weren't allowed to use? I forget. Nerd Night or something like that? Yeah. So we came up with our own. But you'll see here, everything is in a continuous scroll, but if we actually go to the preview, you'll see there's multiple pages. So the main one is just sort of a page with some information about what people are getting into. And when they hit start, then it takes some basic information. Of course, if a field is required, it's not going to let me go ahead. That's how that's going to work. Yes? What was the question? I'm sorry. It does, yeah. It's kind of like a Google Doc or something like that. There is no save button anymore. I think they used to have that, but it now sort of saves pretty much as you make a change. Yes. When you get into the paid accounts, you can also have multiple accounts. So I think at the bronze level, we're only allowed 3 users. I think, is that right? Maybe 4. But that's another nice thing is you can sort of collaborate like you would with a Google Doc or something. Since we don't have like 20 users or whatever, we'd ultimately like to have some of those users are shared. So we have an account, so anyone in the district library that wants to start building forms, looking at you back there, Trish, we can give you that account and you can build forms yourself using the district account. But that's kind of nice too. And then if you saw the folder structure on the left, you can actually make that granular so that people without permission can access Center County Library's forms, that kind of thing. But yeah, things get saved pretty much automatically. Excuse me. Yes?
I apologize if you already answered this, but we've used the forms in the past to do sign-ups for story time, and then we have a cutoff once it's full. Do you have that option with this as well, that it won't allow people to sign up once you've reached your cap?
I know you can make forms like open and close them manually, but Michael's nodding, so you can schedule it as well, he's saying.
So if you go under, just go ahead and open the form quickly. So there's like generic form settings too that you can get into. If you go under settings, this is the form settings. And
Let's show more options. That's right.
So if you go down just a little bit, there is a little more. So go up a little bit more to the top. There is a place in here that you can set up for cutting off.
Disabled on submission limit, or disable on date and submission limit.
So you can schedule it to end at a certain date or
After there's been 25 submissions, or so if you're doing a program registration and you only have 12 seats in the program, you can close it off at that.
the one thing you can't do is waitlists.
Okay.
Yeah, there is no waitlist functionality, that's true. I'm repeating if anyone's watching on the streaming, that's why I'm... Yeah, I forgot about the extra settings in here. I mean, you can add translations if you want, if that's important in your area. You can enforce unique submissions, so if you want people to only submit once, I mean, there are ways that people can get around that, but you can sort of limit it so people are only submitting one time. The encryption's supposed to be pretty good too. Jotform is a service that's used by a lot of companies. I know Facebook uses it internally for all their sort of HR and that kind of stuff. So if you're concerned about security, I would say that the stuff seems to be pretty robust. I mean, I can't speak personally to how secure it is, but you can encrypt your results. You can force the form to always go through SSL, which would be a good idea anyway. And there's a number of options with that as well. I send one out. I was going to show one of mine. I send one out. We have a support ticketing system that's cloud-based, and whenever a ticket closes, Michael or I or Alan has solved their problem, a day or two goes by, and then the person who opened up the support ticket gets this quick survey that's sort of an assessment of how well we did. So, you can do all kinds of stuff like that. So it's sort of automated, and then when it comes time for me to decide whether or not Michael deserves a raise, I can look at that data and decide. So. Well, I'm definitely way ahead of schedule here. I figured I might be, because it's a pretty simple tool. It's very robust. I'd be happy to spend the rest of the time if anyone's playing with it out there. If you have any questions or you're stuck on something, I'd be happy to help you with that. Are there any other questions for the larger group? Okay, well, thank you. And I'll be available if you need a hand. Just raise your hand. Okay, come up. What's the incognito shortcut on Windows? What's the incognito shortcut on